here's what I think John made up his mind fairly early on. He was going to do something different.
Yeah.
And from his point of view, there's two narratives here.
Mm-hmm.
That politics in Washington is broken, and we're in such a partisan slugfest that a Joe Lieberman would be telling the country, not only do I believe in bipartisanship and governing differently, I'm going to do something different. Picking Joe Lieberman would have been a statement to the world and the public at large that, I'm going to judge not on one thing or two things or three things. I'm going to judge based on somebody that I know, I like, and I think is qualified for the job, and party label is going to be secondary. And if he'd have picked Joe, it would have been a big statement. It would have been very unusual, and it would have certainly changed the dynamic of the times in which we live in. And it would have been a pick saying, the reason I picked Joe Lieberman is because he stood up for winning in Iraq. He understood the consequences of losing, and he understands the war on terror as well as anybody I've ever met, and that's very important to our country that we win this war. And he has been a centrist as a Democrat on economic issues. Socially, we're different, but Joe will buy into where I want to take the country. The other road to go down is I'm going to pick somebody outside the town that has a different political persona that will help make the case, help John make the case, that if you elect the two of us, we're the best agents of change because of what we've done. And Sarah Palin's record in Alaska is sort of McCain-like. Mm-hmm. She filed an ethics complaint against the sitting attorney general, who was a Republican with a Democrat, with the Republican Party chairman in Alaska, was on some board with her. She basically said, you can't do politics here at the office, and he kept doing politics, and she filed a complaint and resigned her job. She took on the oil companies in a way that no other Alaska governor had done, and ran against an incumbent governor. So that really enamored John. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the kind of person that he's looking for on this other track that he's taking. And that is that Washington is broken, and I want a reformer, somebody who's tough, a maverick. So at the end of the day, I think that narrative won out. He did not want to do the status quo pick. Mm-hmm. And I think Sarah is going to do a good job better job than McCain's doing, quite frankly, in explaining his economic policies. She's got a way of relating to average people about how you run a business, why taxation matters. So I think she is going to help us in areas where we need help.
You don't think she peaked a little soon in terms of her appeal in the polls?
Well, that's funny. When she gave her speech, the pressure was enormous. Mm-hmm. She comes literally from the furthest corner of America. Nobody knew her, and her introduction to the public was pretty tough. The media came after her pretty hard. So that convention speech was a really dramatic moment for her personally, and the weight of the world was on her shoulders, and the teleprompter broke. So having done these teleprompter things, I was like, So anyway, she knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Then she had a couple of interviews that were not so good. The 15-second sound bites were not good. The debate, all the pressure.
The long ones weren't so great either.
Yeah, no, right. No, I mean, this is like, there's skill sets in politics. When you're running in a state system, it's different than if you're running on the national stage, and that's just a fact. You get asked hard questions, but the questions are different because the subject matter is different. That's true of any governor, I think, that goes onto the national stage. But these interviews did not play well, and I think she understands that. Mm-hmm. So when she goes into debate, there's a huge amount of pressure on her, and I couldn't have been more pleased. She was conversational, she was knowledgeable, and she seems to be able to rise to the occasion and is a pressure player. And she's really helping energy, not just with the base. We're matching history with history. You've got a very talented historic choice in Senator Obama. Well, so with Sarah Palin, that would be a historic choice. In that regard, she's helping a lot.